I was saying it's important that Molly and her conversation has to happen next because for all the things that Molly says Issa is messy about, Molly's kind of in one of her messy periods herself, but this is the first time Issa's truly taking control out of every aspect of her life
Yeah, I
in
think
their
you're right.
relationship that we've seen so far.
Yeah.
And it seems as if Issa is the one who initiated in the preview this meeting up with Molly and stuff. We're showing like a new Issa that she keeps saying there's a new her that we get to see, and while everyone for the first time is playing catch up to her.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's absolutely right.
Yeah. That that conversation between Issa and Lawrence was, can we unpack that?
There was a lot there. Yeah.
That was wow. Like I think of all of us in this space were like, shit, I have had some version of this
Yeah.
conversation on either side. And it was it was important to hear that, I think. Just the things that are unsaid and like the burdens that so many of us carry in our relationships and don't feel the freedom or comfort to share, maybe not even because of the other person, you know, like I think that was really, you know, we were ragging on Lawrence before, but in that moment I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Like he was, you know, Mitsu, like you were saying, he was holding a lot. He was carrying a lot, and it hurt Issa, but it doesn't invalidate, you know, the pain of his experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a very real conversation, and I think it's I think like you were saying, Latoya, before, like he was clearly depressed that time that they were together, and you know there were never words for it, and it's not even that he said he was depressed this time around either, but that's kind of, you know, that's implied in the fact that he was talking about the place he was in and saying like, oh, you know, seeing you go to work reminded me that I didn't have anywhere to go, and you know, I recognize relationships like that. um yeah, I don't know, I mean, I think for me, obviously, I have long been the Lawrence apologist insofar as like, yeah, the, you know, if you look at the story between them, it's that she was unhappy, she cheated on him, and then he didn't want to get back together even though she did. Like that's one what it is on one level. On another level, it's that, yeah, like he wasn't meeting her needs for a very, very long time, and then afterwards he, you know, denied getting back together, didn't want to do the self-examination and work, and then did some fuckboy shit in his other interactions afterwards. And I think both of those things can be true at the same time, right? Like those are both realities that exist together. um, and yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's really nice to see that Issa, as you said, Samus, took the situation into her own hands and was true to the thing that she wanted. So, yeah.
I
It
think
just
this was
made me
Lauren's
think
best
about
moment.
how
Oh, sorry. Go
it
on.
just made me think about, I don't know, it just made me think about how different stuff will be in life if we have those conversations early and do that emotional labor like at the time when it really is impactful, like how different the outcome of circumstances would be.
Mm-hmm. That's the truth. I mean, I think even, I don't know, I think about you know, I feel like I'm the type of person who will meditate for a very long time about an interaction or like a text or an email, and like it grows every day. Like the more I avoid sending the thing or speaking the thing, it takes up more and more space in my life and in my head. And so the idea of just, oh, hey
Oh, hey,
baby.
Devin.
Gavin versus hi. Hi.
Hey cutie pie. um but yeah, I think Nikki's so correct in saying like, wow, what if they had sat down one day and spoken these things? Like really spoken these things. What, you know, how beautiful, and where could their relationship be? Because it continues to grow and grow and grow and take up more space with each day.
It's an interesting thing that you said that and not to talk too much about what I'm doing, but like as I'm watching this episode, like literally the last couple days I've been writing like a talk about like representing anxiety and intimacy in a game, and like the conversation that they had was the epitome of a conversation that I wrote for my game We Should Talk, based off of a thing that happened in my experience. Where in this episode, I personally think this episode was Lawrence's best moments as a character. Faults and for his vulnerabilities that he let out, because is the first time he actually lays it out on the table, and he's still Lawrence in that he's still making really bad decisions the entire way, and he can't help himself. But he is also letting himself be vulnerable and unsure of what he wants, which is like what everybody else in the show is. But for so long, he pretends that, or rather, convinces himself that he knows what he wants and he knows what he's looking for. And for the first time, he's just like, I actually don't know.
I think the brilliance of this show is the fact that it always kind of alludes back to the name of this show is Insecure.
Yeah.
And in this instance, we get to see a depiction of the very real insecurity that a lot of Black men have around vulnerability. When we think about the word vulnerability, I think that we forget that vulnerability doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. And for a lot of Black men, it's very much considered a weakness. And so it was easier for him to go out there and buzz down and sleep around and go through all this drama than to address and unpack his very real emotions. I think that's the brilliance of this show. Even about like how you mentioned how it always goes back to this comedic moment. Like there's room for that levity when you are in a space of insecurity because it's never direct. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like Nikki, one of the things that I kept thinking watching the episode was that like Lawrence seemed kind of emotionally shell-shocked. Like, you know, in truth, he had moved on. Physically, he had moved on. He was dating other people. He was doing a bunch of other stuff. But he never actually went past that moment of figuring out, like, what was wrong and what was going on.
It was betrayal trauma. Yeah. It's betrayal trauma. Like, it's betrayal trauma. And
but it's also like... It's also like betrayal on multiple levels, right? So like we spent the first season unpacking Issa's like physical relationship betrayal, right? Like she slept with somebody else, didn't tell him about it, it's non-consensual, there's all this other stuff. But there's also, you know, emotional betrayals that happen in a relationship when like you need somebody to show up for you and they don't continually. Like, you know, one of the things that we tend to forget, especially post season 2, Glow It Up Lawrence, is that one of the first scenes we see him, like I didn't even remember this until we went back and reread the script, right, Jordan, in terms of like looking at the first episode. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, I forgot your birthday, but I'll get you back later, babe. Like, it was like, Lawrence was a super scrub when he was sitting there. And again, like, if you dated somebody that's been depressed, you know, like, that is the sign. They're not moving forward. It's not happening in so many different ways. And so, like, Lawrence coming back to himself in, like, season 2, season 3, and then trying to figure out what that was, but still wanting that closure. And it seems like he didn't even admit it necessarily to himself, especially not his homeboys, until like maybe in that moment when he was like, I thought we were working on it. I still don't understand why you did this. Like he's been stuck there this whole time.
Yeah, that was a lot to hear. I think if you had never kind of really given, not given much thought to it, but like really hearing from her for the first time, like what that felt like, what her experience of the relationship was like that was intense. I mean, I'm curious, do y'all feel like he's done the work, or like this?
No,
right?
No. I hate to, like, emotional labor is like a term that like we've started throwing around more and more these days, but like there's this line between like unpacking your shit and acknowledging your shit and then doing the work. And we've not yet seen him do the work. Now that doesn't mean that he won't, but you know, this is just unpacking. This isn't putting it away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one example of that is, you know, whatever shit's going on with Condola at the same time, and his like emotional immaturity around that, right? Like, could you not like wait until she's left at least if you're gonna be shady like that? Like, what the I don't know what that was about. That was like
it felt to me like he
might have been trying to do that.
It felt to me, sorry, it's flying there. It felt to me like
oh my God, it's so big.
He tried to do the thing that's fuckboy behavior, where he doesn't know where this night with Issa is gonna go. So at this moment, she's like, he has both exes on the bench ready to bring one up to play the game for him, because it does seem like it's a little bit serious for him, but like he's like playing his odds and he's not sure like what if Issa didn't agree to go up in the apartment. That phone call.
And actually, that's really interesting, because that's like a continuation of what we were just saying is what he did after the betrayal, which is just go and like sleep with a bunch of other people. So it's like he's trying to avoid pain, right?
Yeah.
And in all cases, he's trying to avoid pain, and in this case, he's trying to avoid the pain of rejection by Issa, whatever that looked like, by going and hooking up with Condola afterwards.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Me and my husband have been talking about this a lot, because one of his friends is getting remarried, and like he has a very toxic behavior pattern where like he cheats in almost every relationship he's in. And so like, back to what Nikki was saying about like you can unpack something and not do the work to like solve it.
Yeah.
And it's like that's this friend, right? Like at this point we've seen him through 4 or 5 different relationships, and like we've been together 14 years. They've been friends since high school. So we've seen this whole arc and what's happened, and we're like, yo, you've never solved this core thing of like why you feel like you have to cheat in your relationships. Like you just can't make it through a relationship longer than a year without cheating. Until you do that, it's all going to be the same ending. It doesn't matter which you're changing, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things we were talking about was this discussion of like how men are allowed to interpret and process their feelings. So like, we talk about emotional labor, but men are also kind of put into this really big box around like who they're allowed to. So there was this article, I think it was Vanity Fair, that was like, women are everything to men doing emotional labor, therapy, caregiving, all these things, because men don't have friends in the way that women have friends. And it's killing women, because it's like, oh, there's all of the stuff that we need in a heterosexual context. There's all the stuff that we need to be providing to these partners that they might not be equipped to provide back. And like one of the quotes from the article that I was like, you can send this back to your homie. One of the quotes from the article was like, look, like if something bad happens to you, as a straight man, one of the things that your friends are going to do is they take you out, they get you drunk, they just fuck somebody else, because that's like the appropriate channeling of your feelings. That doesn't deal with like loneliness or like wishing that didn't happen or that you still want to be with that person. All it is conquest, right? And the idea is that conquest is supposed to make you feel better, and that's what you keep getting pushed toward. And there's not a lot of emotional space or range given for other types of emotional unpacking. So for a lot of men, like they don't actually have the tools to do this.
Yeah. I'm curious if like one of the, because we're talking about like doing the work, what that would look like for Lawrence. Would that mean having these conversations with the friends? Would it mean cutting these friends off? Like, because his male friends ain't shit. You know what I mean? Like they don't really provide that kind of space, I feel like, or maybe I've missed it, but I'm just curious. I think, LaToya, what you're talking about, my husband, when he talks to me about some of the like interactions that his friends have and some of the like their just experiences and kind of inability to work through certain things, I'm always like, is it just like being honest, or is it being like, we can't be homies until you work through until you like get over your toxic shit, we can't kind of hang around with each other. Like, does Lawrence need to cut the homies off? Does Lawrence need to like have these types of conversations with his friends who can help him?
I think he needs to go to a therapist, for one thing.
You know what I'm saying? Because depression is an actual mental illness, and he never really got treated for it. He just started self-medicating with sex.
But I mean, it's the same. So like Nathan is the flip side of his coin, right? And insecure.
Yeah.
So Nathan, like, everybody's addressing openly, like, oh, he's got some issues, but they're not saying what they are, if he's treating them, what's going on. Because again, a lot of times it's like this idea of like, yeah, but you're gonna be all right. Like, just kind of keep going. Like, even like I feel like Lawrence is like searching, going to church, that one episode of him trying to like find something that he could hold on to, and then still not quite find that thing, but not put the two and two together. Like, oh, I need to like see somebody. But again, like I said, I feel like that's reinforcement. So even like, is it that his friends are trash, or is it that they all just aren't equipped either, right? Like Derek and Chad. Derek's trying to be in a marriage and trying to show up, and he's got his own shit right now, obviously. Like, we ain't seen Tiffany and Kelly this episode, and God knows what's happening with that baby.
Yeah.
But like there's not that equipment I keep thinking about The Wood, right? Like I love The Wood, and so such a fan of The Wood. But The Wood and like the way in which men communicated throughout that entire movie, I feel like is so indicative of the men that I know and grew up with. Where it's like they don't fucking talk. There is no like. I worked at ESPN. All these dudes be going through so much shit, and they'll talk to a woman about it. But if it's another guy, they will literally just sit next to them and be like, "So yo, how about that? Like it wasn't that game last night." Like that is the only way they're going to interface with each other. Yeah. They need this like ground of like sports or something to then maybe blurt out at the last minute, like, man, shit's really fucked up right now. And then maybe they'll talk about it, maybe they won't, maybe they'll just move on. But it's a really interesting communication style that, like I said, especially like, my dad loved The Wood. He's only been excited about 2 movies as long as I can remember. Us being able to have The Wood and Star Wars that trace back. Like that's the only movie I've ever seen him get hype about and like make arrangements to go see. And The Wood was like him and his homeboys. And I watched that and I was like, is this why you can't talk about fucking anything? Like this is who you are. Huh. Like y'all would rather just punch somebody in the face and be like, get your ass on, than to actually talk about like, hey, are you afraid of getting married? Are you having an issue right now? You could No, they just had a fucking fight in the street in the woods. Like that's how they got to that point. They had to beat each other up. The dude had to get drunk and get lost for them to finally have a conversation. That wasn't even a conversation. But in some ways, like that's the piece of what you're given. And that's the tool you're allowed to work with. Because remember too, like there is a part, and I think you even see this in like the insecure fan groups around when men are too vulnerable. And men do say that like they don't have it all together. Or they don't look like they have a plan. It's a lot of shutdown.
I was raised in an environment where the goal of being was emotional distance. Like, emotional distance is cool. Emotional distance is what you want to achieve, because otherwise anything else is weakness, and then weakness gets you in trouble that you don't. It makes you a target that you don't want to be. I mean, fortunately for me, that's not really who I am personally, but I see it makes friends to come to it because we don't have the sorry, I was getting a little too real considering where the world's at. We don't often have the opportunity to we have the opportunity to show that vulnerability because of the fears that we're going through on a daily basis of what it means to be alive and stay alive, or not succumb to a statistic, not become a hashtag in this day and age. And as a result, that stuff gets bottled up and represents itself as anger for lots of people. And, therapy is not a thing that is encouraged in the community enough to combat these things, because otherwise, that's openly admitting the vulnerability that you have. It's openly saying like that's asking for help, which is the thing that we're not supposed to do, quote unquote. So it's interesting to see how it manifests in characters like Lawrence, because he's not your quintessential macho, extremely toxic man in the way that you like generally see that. He's a dork, but the way that those things manifest still pop up in like every little bit of his actions, where he is a lost soul the entire time. And the only time we really got to see vulnerability is through his pain, with the exception of today's episode, where he started to come out. But even in this instance, it's directly following the pain of another breakup. It is the same patterns over and over again, with 3 steps forward, 2 steps back.
That's beautiful, Jordan. That's very real, and what an episode, I think. And that this is why this show is so amazing. And like these 30-minute episodes, it just delivers so many layers of life and being, and in such a smart and nuanced and yet still funny way. Like, what else does that, and where else can we see these complex, nuanced stories, right?
I appreciate
right in the field.
Yeah, I really appreciate having this conversation. I think just again, I think as an appreciation or understanding of where other folks are at. Because again, you know, I think at the beginning of the episode, it was very easy for me to be like, man, Lawrence is trash. You know, like I'm over Lawrence and his shenanigans, and like really having to grapple with the realities of what he has been working through, maybe in a toxic way, maybe, you know, perhaps in a way that hasn't benefited him or in terms of his growth, but really, really reconciling that that's the reality of it. It sucks. It sucks how it unfolded, but like that is the reality of it. And again, I think going back to what Mitsu was saying and Nikki, and actually what everyone said, like the kind of learning to extend that kind of empathy, even when we have our own shit, like is really, really challenging. And so having this conversation is really nice to me as a reminder that like people are dealing with their own shit in different ways, and we can try to meet people where they're at.
I think it's tough because like two things can be true at the same time.
Right.
Like this person can be hurt and going through some very real issues and can also be a fuckboy on some toxic shit. You know? Like with R. Kelly, like R. Kelly was molested and he went through sexual abuse, but he's still toxic and trash and belongs to be, you know, he belongs in jail. Like, and so when dealing with people, I think that operating from a space of compassion and empathy while also maintaining our boundaries to protect ourselves from their toxicity, I think is really important. And then and I think that puts responsibility back on us though to enforce our own boundaries while also operating from a place of empathy. And it's not easy. It's not easy because none of us are saints. None of us are perfect. Lord knows I'm not. I study emotional associations and neuroanatomy and biology for fun because I have PTSD. I manage it without medication. So I have a mental illness. So I'm studying this stuff all the time for fun. And even I find myself at times being somewhat intolerant of other people's toxicity or what I perceive to be toxicity. So yeah, it's hard. Like, it's hard. That's why like this show is just so brilliant because it unpacks such complex, nuanced things that are so hard to encapsulate, and she just does it in 30 minutes.
Yes. 30 minutes. And I mean, too, it's also easy to like lose sight. Like, you know, we've all seen Fuckboys. Everybody likes to talk about that one. But like the thing that's always characterized Lawrence to me is that he's always looking for the happy ending. He's been searching for his happy ending. That whole conversation with his dad, which again, like to me, like in the way that Jordan, you were like, this is really revealing. Like for me, it was that Lawrence episode where he like goes to church and he talks to his dad and whatever, showing that he really like, he's like, I want my happy ending too. Like I want to be married. I want to have a wife. I want to do stuff. Even like this whole season, Prentice and Issa and them talking about Lawrence dating with intentions. Why Condola's named Condola. Did you guys know that? Why Condola's named Condola? Condola is Felicia Rasad's real life daughter name. Real life daughter's name. And the reason that they named that character was they were like, well, Lawrence is now dating with intention. He is trying to find a wife. And so we created this character in Condola that fits all the boxes, right? And so it's interesting because it's like people don't attribute like those kind of wishes, like the way that they assume that women have bride fantasies. They don't assume traditional groom fantasies with men and that they want to walk down the aisle, they want to start a family, even if they do. So again, it's like there's this box that Lawrence is in trying to climb out of. And there's also like that piece of it too, which is like, you know, am I worthy as a spouse? And I know that again, like we talked about this too on another stream of how Condola literally represented a glow up for both Lawrence and Issa in terms of Issa being like, oh, Condola's like the person I'm trying to be, and like she's dressing better, she's doing better, she's doing deals because of Condola's influence. And for Lawrence, that represents the type of woman he wants to be with, right? So it's like for both of them, she's an upgrade. And that made it just very tough from a tension perspective because you can't be on a pedestal and still be a real person.
I think that's like no, that was she's spitting. Latoya's out here spitting. Bars, right? Bars. I mean, I think that idea is so the idea of like people as symbols or people as like references to something else, like that's again going back to what Nikki said about the show being called Insecure. Like there's something really important there about unpacking like who a person really is and like what your ideas or expectations for that person are. And I'm so curious as far as like Issa getting with Lawrence, like where she's at with that. Like, does he represent something, or is that her being like, this is who he is in the moment, and I'm here to receive that, baggage and all, like we're gonna just do our thing? Or is it like this is a symbol of the things that could have been that weren't, because we didn't have that conversation? Like, I'm still not sure what that means, because I think like we were saying, part of me was like, she's owning that this is what she wants to be happy. She's saying, I want this right now. And in part, that's like, okay, Issa, you make decisions for your life, but also like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, like what is the angle of that? It's what she wants, but from what sort of point of view? Is it making up for something that she lost out on, and she's like proving to herself that she could have it? That's like one thing. Or it is, as you say, maybe it's like, we can work on this, I can receive you as a full flawed person. But yeah, we don't know, because this episode did not follow Issa off into the bathroom at any point, right? We didn't see what her perspective was at all. So yeah. Oh, hi. Hi, Kitty.
Hey, Kitty.
Very cool.
Aww. I'm really glad we all got together tonight to watch this together. I think this was...
Yeah, it's
nice to see all your
I feel
faces.
like I needed
Right?
this.
Same.
Yo, I spent the entire day getting cussed out by racists because I have a tweet that went viral, like super duper mega viral, about the black cowboy that was riding in the protest downtown Chicago, and like nothing, like so many racists cussing me out. So I spent the day cussing them out too. And like, it was like, I feel like I needed something like this that like dealt with vulnerability and see people living a good life, and kind of just step outside of that to make me feel like an actual human being again. So I'm really glad that I was invited to join today.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you for your insights. Really,
Yes.
Y'all were bars. Just thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll wrap it up there, and hopefully we can get together again next week. And yeah, I guess penultimate episode next week, right, of the season. There's like 2 more to go. Wow. All right. Thank you for joining, everybody. And we will see you next time. Jordan, do you want to give one more shout out to your game and your Kickstarter?
Sure. I'm working on a game called We Should Talk. It's going to be releasing on all major platforms later this summer. And we have a Kickstarter right now. If you look for We Should Talk on Kickstarter, you'll be able to find us. We're trying to we hit our goal of $5,000 in 8 hours, and now we're hitting stretch goals, and I'd love to have people participate.
Amazing. Oh, I'm so happy for you. Yeah, We Should Talk is incredible, and yeah, you should definitely support it. And of course, please go to insecurethecomeupgame.net, where you can sign up to be notified when the game that Glow Up is working on is coming out. So thanks, everyone, and